down there. And joining me now for advice for the candidates, her take on the Anointed One's latest policy initiative, former Alaska Governor, Fox News contributor Sarah Palin. Governor, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm doing great. Thank you, Sean.
All right. First of all, you know, none of this is new. It's all recycled rhetoric by the president. He wants $1.5 trillion. And we find out from the AP, we'll go into this in detail later, that in fact the president's wrong. The wealthiest Americans pay a much higher in terms of taxes, total and percentage, than the middle class and the poor. How do we characterize what the president's saying?
Well, this is more of the same, and it's going to lead to more failed economic policy. We shouldn't be surprised, though. Obama, as a candidate, he promised us that he would try to fundamentally transform America and that he was into redistributing wealth, and that is part of that class warfare that he wants to engage in, but the rest of us should be above it and not allow him to get away with that this time. What he's doing this time, Sean, really is underestimating the wisdom of the people. We know that increasing tax rates on anybody, regardless of income, at a time of economic woe will certainly not grow the economy, will not allow private sector jobs to be created. He's really underestimating the electorate on this one.
All right, but the lower income households in this country, people that make $50,000 to $75,000 a year, they pay 15% of their income in federal taxes. The wealthy, those that make $1 million a year, the millionaires that he talks about, big difference between millionaires and billionaires, by the way, but there's 267,000 Americans in 2009 that filed as millionaires. They pay, on average, 29.1%. Now, the president said they're not paying their fair share, and that Warren Buffett's secretary is paying more. I don't know what Warren Buffett's secretary is doing, but that is not the case for the 99.9% of people in that category. So what are we to make of the president's comments?
The president is way off on his math, for one, and I hope that you will get into what the AP did in terms of fact-checking. I so appreciate that they just wanted to get to their readers some information that helps us make better decisions, and I appreciate that they called the president on some of these, you know, I call them lies, because I think surely the president is too smart to not have people around him with a calculator and can tell us truly what people's tax rates are and what his proposals will result in new tax rates being. Warren Buffett, too, he's totally incorrect in trying to make Americans believe that his secretary would be paying a lower tax rate than he is as a billionaire, because he's trying to make the suggestion that his tax rate is based on just his income. And we know that, you know, some of the semantics that he's even used in the piece that he wrote is, I believe, used to confuse people and used to gin up this class warfare rhetoric. And I'm glad that the AP and that you have fact-checked it, and we can explain more about it. Yeah,
well, I was giving you the figures from that AP fact-check. And by the way, I have a message for Warren Buffett. Put up or shut up. If you want to pay more in taxes, write a check to the federal government, lead by example, and stop lecturing the rest of the country.
And Sean, and we can't allow him to just be able to sit back, fight the federal government for a decade now over his $1 billion tax bill that's still outstanding, and try to, you know, throw stones from afar saying, God, doggone it, he's just not charged enough in taxes, and yet he's disputing the taxes that he does owe the American government.
Yeah, pretty interesting, isn't it? And this has gone on for a long period of time. All right, so I'm watching the president, I'm watching his rhetoric, and then I'm thinking, all right, if you were in these debates on Thursday night, and maybe you'll show up, I don't know, and you could make a big announcement here tonight, but if you were in these debates on Thursday night, what would your message be?
We have to make sure that our candidates are really articulating what their governing philosophy is and their understanding of the fact that government doesn't create jobs. It is the private sector, of course, that grows the economy. So I want to know what these candidates' records are. What have they been able to show on a local and a state level that they have done to create jobs, to reduce tax rates, and to rein in the growth of government in their local communities and their states and maybe the districts that they represent? I don't want to just hear rhetoric about them putting up their dukes and fighting for the right things. I want to know their track record of success. So certainly I hope that they're going to be able to prove to voters, to potential supporters out there, that they can walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
All right. How do they deal with the president's hard lurch to the left? And not just the president, but Democrats, the liberals in this country. Because I think this was an appeal by the president to shore up his base. He's got the lowest number approval ratings with the base of the Democratic Party, they're angry with him. They feel he's lost his way. But, you know, between the attacks against the Tea Party as wanting African Americans hanging from trees and sons of bitches that can go straight to hell and all of this rhetoric, which he, by the way, wouldn't announce, all of these things combined in the president's class warfare rhetoric, what do you it seems a decision has been made. A strategy's been adopted. Do you think that strategy can work?
Well, let him go back to that 20% of the American population that is that far left where he comes from. That is his base. Let him go there. That's only 20% of the population. Independent Americans and fiscal conservatives have that common sense, understanding that the private sector will be able to grow the jobs and not growing more centralized government that Obama wants to do. Let him go that far left and don't even engage in making the arguments against such nonsensical policies that he has adopted. Instead, let's talk about what truly will grow this economy. That's natural resource energy production here domestically. That's cutting tax rates, not increasing tax rates. That's making sure that crony capitalism is finally tackled and eliminated in our federal government. That's all those things that many of us fiscal conservatives have talked about over these months. Let's discuss those and make sure that independent Americans are understanding that really it's going to be the GOP this go around that's going to affect the positive change that our economy needs.
What do you think of the Solyndra? You talked about crony capitalism. You're following that case, and we're going to get into it in more detail later. And now it's a number of examples. It's expanded out, Light Squared and others. What are your thoughts on it?
You're going to be blown away by more and more examples that will surface, Sean, with people researching what Obama's agenda has been in terms of crony capitalism and corporate welfare. People are going to be blown away. This is just the tip of the iceberg, this solar panel company that was given, you know, the $500 million. What this one crony corporation of Obama's was given is more than 35 states were given to build their roads and their basic infrastructure in terms of federal monies going into their states. More than 35 states had fewer federal dollars returned to them than this solar company did. It's sick. It's pretty rampant, though. There's a lot of pay for play here in the Obama administration. It's been on both sides of the aisles, of course, in American history, but you're going to see some very blatant examples. The solar company is just one of the examples. All
right, Governor, stay right there. When we come back, I want you to assess the strengths and the weaknesses of the candidates as they go into Thursday's debate right here on the Fox News Channel. Also, I've got to ask you the question, if you're thinking about running, we're going to have much more with Governor Palin right after the break. And we continue now with former Alaska Governor, Fox News contributor, Governor Sarah Palin. All right, Governor, you said you kind of are feeling it in terms of you're engaged. Is it more than ever before? It's becoming crunch time. You've got to make a decision, or else some states are going to be out of play for you. Where do you stand in your thought process in terms of jumping into this Republican presidential nomination campaign?
There is still time, Sean, and I think on both sides of the aisle you're going to see people coming and going in this race. By the way, I think that President Obama, after this misnomer called this jobs bill that's been proposed, which really is a tax hike increase bill that he's proposed. After that, I think more and more Democrats are going to realize that if they want to retain the Democrat control of the White House, they're going to have to put somebody up in the primary against Obama. So I think there's going to be changes on that side, and in the Republican race also in this primary. I think people are still going to be coming and going because there is still time, and I'm still one of those still considering the time factor, and knowing, Sean, how important it is that we get this country back on the right track, knowing, Sean, that it's not enough to just change up the uniform. We need to change the entire game plan, and we need to change the entire team that's been there at the White House doing such great damage to our economy. We need to make sure that we have the best and most qualified, the most vetted candidate to come forth and rise to the surface after this primary process.
All right. Are you, I would say by November you got to make a decision, though, right?
You do. I mean, legally you do, because you have to start getting your ducks lined up to have your name on these ballots. But I do think, Sean, this is going to be such an unconventional election cycle, because this has been such an unconventional administration that we are fighting so hard and so committed to replacing. It's not just the administration, but it's the Senate, those who have followed like sheep behind President Obama and allowed him to do what he has done in terms of harm to our economy. We are committed to increasing the number of fiscal conservatives in the House of Representatives also. So, you know, it's a big agenda out there for those of us who are so extremely concerned about the future of our country, and whether we are candidates or whether we are supporters of the right candidacies. We're going to be out there working so hard in these next 14 months, but a lot is going to happen in these next 14 months. Mark my word, it is going to be an unconventional type of election process. Yeah,
I tend to agree with you. It's going to be interesting, and we still await your decision. It's going to be interesting. People ask me all the time what I think you're going to do, and I vacillate. I can't tell at different times. All right, here's an important question. Let's look at the top three candidates right now, and that would be Governor Perry, Governor Romney, and Michelle Bachmann. Strengths and weaknesses of the three. What would you like to see out of those three come Thursday night's debate right here on the Fox News Channel?
Well, first, depending on what poll you're looking at, those three may be up there. Ron Paul may be in front of Michelle Bachmann, according to certain polls. Shoot, I've seen my own name up there in the top three. Don't know how legitimate the poll is that I just looked at that said that. But, you know, there's lots of vacillation, if you will, within these polls. But very appreciative that all of them have their strengths that they are articulating, and that, again, they're willing to be there in the arena to be bloodied up and to engage in vigorous debate so that electors have the best choices to make. They do need to talk about their experience, though, and I don't want to hear, as I said earlier, to hear rhetoric about them just putting up a fight against the crony capitalism or poor foreign policy decisions that have been made. I want to make sure that they have been effective in the past to prove that they have a record that we can build upon, knowing that that could carry them forward for what we need in this country. I want to know what their successful track record is. They need to talk about that going into this debate.
Yeah, what would you want to hear, for example, the whole issue of the Social Security being a Ponzi scheme has become a big issue. Mitt Romney's addressed it. Mitt Romney had some pretty strong words today about President Obama. He said that he's naive, arrogant, misguided, dangerous in terms of his foreign policy as it relates to Israel and the Palestinians. What would be the one thing you want to hear out of Perry and the one thing you want to hear about Romney? Pretty much in every poll, the two front runners.
Well, Perry is right when he talked about Obama's foreign policies as it relates to Israel. It's been misguided, it's been weak, and that has resulted in the Palestinians thinking that they're going to be given a state, and they're using Obama's own words against Americans now as they go into this UN vote at the end of the week. So Perry's right in the statement he made, and Perry and others are right too when they talk about the need to reform our entitlement programs. Social Security isn't going to be solvent in the future, and we will have entitlement reform. It just comes down to how are we going to get that reform? Will the world's capital markets do it to us, or will we diplomatically and democratically reform our own programs?
Yeah, you know, I find myself a little bit in Newt Gingrich's camp in this respect about his comments that he's made in the last couple of debates. Everybody up on that stage would want to repeal Obamacare. Everyone up there supports, at least they say so, cutting taxes to stimulate the economy, ending burdensome regulation, repealing Obamacare. You know, there are so many fundamental differences with all of them versus Obama that I think any of them will be infinitely better. I have strong disagreement with Ron Paul about Iran. That's problematic for me. But I think there are certain things that I think each of them can do to strengthen their position. You agree with that?
I do agree with that. I agree, too. I think what you're suggesting is many of us who are supporters of ABO, you know, anybody but Obama.
Yeah, that's me.
That's what it's going to come down to. Yeah. But at the same time, as I said, though, we need to make sure we're not just switching up the uniform. We need a new team. We need a new game plan. That's the only way that we're going to save our country.
Yeah. All right, Governor Palin, it's always good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And coming up.